Good Thursday evening to you. Welcome to More Sports and Les-Levine. I'm Dave Bacon, filling in for Les-Levine. You see the number if you want to get involved, 216-575-0403. And joining us today, Indians beat reporter for cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer, Paul Hoynes. Hoynesy, we appreciate it. Getting ready for the GM meetings. Now, not a lot usually goes on there, but it does kind of set the stage for further things.
Definitely, Dave. This is where a team like the Indians has been talking to the other teams since the end of the regular season. The next step is to go to the GM meetings, get in a room face to face with your fellow GMs, and take another step toward the winter meetings. And as we've seen the last couple years, past the winter meetings, maybe into February and March, as far as getting a deal done.
Well, nationally, obviously, we'll talk plenty about the Indians and what they might do. Roberto Perez getting some really big accolades. But news of the day, Browns, obviously, as they're getting ready. At 2-6, they're getting ready to play the Bills. And Paul, nationally, this is probably the biggest disappointment for a Cleveland sports team on a national level. Since back in 1987, something you were very familiar with is, the Indians with Joe Carter and Corey Schneider on the cover of Sports Illustrated, Indian Uprising. And how's that for a little throwback look? But, it's very similar. Everybody kind of thought the Indians were on the verge of getting it done and taking over. Same thing they thought about the Browns. And it was a disappointment that it kind of just lingers, week after week with you.
Definitely. It was the only thing about that 1987 is everybody on the team and was covering the team, and even the people that were running the team knew that was a horrendous mistake. They had no pitching. They had a great offense, but they had no pitching, and I think they lost 10 of their first 12 games right out of the gate. It was right down in the tank, and so they left no doubt that what kind of season it was going to be.
So what you're saying is the people involved, unlike what we're dealing with, I think the Browns thought they were getting ready to make a step forward.
I think everybody bought into the Browns, and it's hard not to with the talent they put together and the playmakers they brought in, and just the vibe and how they finished last year.
Yeah, and it just goes to show, football is the ultimate team game. You really do need all 11 guys on each side of the ball kind of working together.
Yeah, you have to, exactly. You can't shortchange any one area, because that area usually creeps up and bites you.
Well, one of the things that the Browns are trying to figure out is exactly how to get Odell-Beckham-Jr. more involved. Todd-Monken, offensive coordinator, not the play caller, though, spoke about that out in Berea today.
Again, I would refer back to some of it is that. Some of it is what they're doing. Some of it is obviously what we're doing. And I'm talking about collectively, schematically. It's not always, it's not like we're purposely looking one way or we're looking away from somebody. So obviously, when you have that few of targets to somebody like that, then you've got to take a look at it and say, how do we get our playmakers the ball? And that's it, every part of the field. That's really not just there, but obviously with our struggles there, then we've looked at that and we'll continue to look at it as we move forward.
So after all that, I'm going to ask you about another guy not getting the ball, and that's Higgins. You're seeing him for the first time. We saw what he did last year. What do you see in him that's keeping him from at least getting ahead of Callaway, who's making mistakes every single game?
Well, first off, it's tough for Richard, just the way the year started. And in terms of, I thought had a really good preseason camp and then had a real good start to the year, and then he got hurt. And so that, I wouldn't say it was a setback, but it certainly doesn't help when you're not practicing, you're not out there, so you start to, obviously last year they also didn't have Odell, so that's part of it as well. You had some other guys who were more role players, so all of a sudden a player's role changes and he's trying to find a niche, and we are too. So it's a little more complicated than that, but obviously he's a guy that Baker has real comfort in, and we do have to get him more involved. We do. You're right. And have him be a bigger factor in what we do again, there's only so much you can do. Again, like I said before, one ball, but it has been frustrating, I'm sure, for him and for us.
And they're here, Todd-Monken, offensive coordinator, trying to figure out how to get the ball in Odell-Beckham-Jr.'s hands. Paul, as a beat reporter, how do you weigh asking a question like that you know has to be asked, and is it the way you present it? How do you deal with it? Because you're going to have to deal with these guys day in and day out. How do you handle something like that?
It's an art, you know, and I've seen guys do it, you know, a couple different ways. Some guys just kind of jump in with both feet and, you know, run the risk of, you know, the press conference blowing up, and that's the only question that gets asked. Or, you know, you kind of just, I like to try to work in gradually, you know, throw them a couple softballs, and then get to the question that you really want to ask. You know, it's just, I think you have to play it by ear. You have to know who you're talking to and who will, you know, how he'll respond to you.
You know, there's a perception that, you know, the media is against the team, and you can't, as a guy that covers them day in and day out, you have to be objective and you have to be willing to ask those questions. And as long as you don't do it in a demeaning way, I think most of the people understand what you're doing.
Right, the players know what you're going to ask. I mean, a guy, if this is in football, if the shortstop makes 3 errors, he knows people are going to be at his locker wanting to ask him what happened. So, you know, and if the guy is a professional, even if he isn't, you know, he's got to know that some heat is coming his way. And it's just how, you know, you approach it. You know, I think it's a little dangerous to go, you know, they have a 10-minute cooling off period before every game, after every game, you know, 10 minutes before they let the media in, and, you know, and it's been probably a half hour since the game has ended. So usually a guy is calmed down by then, and he's gotten over his temper tantrum, and you can talk to him. You know, you're usually able to talk to him. Now sometimes a guy just doesn't show, you know, and then you wait until the next day and talk to him.
And as a beat reporter, you want the team to do well, because then interest, by and large, generates, and more people want to hear what you have to say, and you can go and do all the different stories that you want to do as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier to cover a team that's winning than a team that's in the tank. But, you know, sometimes better stories come out of a team that's struggling. I mean, you know, Jim Murray, the great Los Angeles Times columnist, always said he doesn't root for a team, he roots for the story, and whatever is the best storyline.
Yeah, that's very valid, and it makes a whole lot of sense. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. When we return, Paul Hoynes and I will talk a little bit about Indians, especially Roberto Perez. But before we go, I want to tell you about the Ohio Lottery. Did you know that over 238,000 winners on Ohio scratch-offs each and every day on the Ohio Lottery? With that amount of winning, stop by your local retailer and try your luck on any of the popular holiday-themed scratch-offs. The Ohio Lottery. Also want to tell you about Facebook. Facebook.com/more-sports-and-les-levine. New content posted each and every day, including our Facebook question of the day, which we'll get to a little bit later in the show. Time for us to take a quick time out. Paul Hoynes and I will return after this timeout. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine here on More Sports and Les Levine. We'll be right back.
Presque Isle Downton Casino now has sports betting. Use one of the 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet. Then, watch your favorite games on our new HD televisions or visit our new sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downton Casino.
As a kid growing up, my dream was to go to college, play baseball, and get a degree. Coming out of high school, I had 2 choices. I was accepted into a 4-year university, but I decided to come to Tri-C after receiving a scholarship. I got my associate's degree at Tri-C. They transferred all my credits straight into Baldwin-Wallace, so I started at Baldwin-Wallace University as a junior. My name is Tyler Leonard, and I earned my first degree at Tri-C.
The Ohio Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, Partners in Education, where stars shine. Welcome back to More Sports and Les-Levine. Dave Bacon filling in for Les-Levine. Pleased to be joined by the Indians beat reporter for cleveland.com, as well as the plain dealer, Paul Hoynes. And Paul, you've seen a whole lot of baseball, and what about the year Roberto Perez had? Unbelievable. Finally gets a chance to be the everyday catcher with Yan Gomes being traded, and he responds. Perez, you always knew he was a good defensive player. He was named the Wilson Defensive Player of the Year, not just the Catcher of the Year, but the Wilson Defensive Player of the Year. And if we take a look at some of the things he didn't allow a passed ball in almost 1,000 innings. That in and of itself is just ridiculous. 3 errors in 1,137 chances, threw out 40%, better than 40%, and the 29 defensive runs saved according to Fangraphs. That's why pitchers love him. He also hit pretty well this year as well. First time he got to play regularly with Yan Gomes being traded last offseason.
Yeah, this is the biggest surprise, I think. I don't think anyone anticipated this. I think people, knew he was getting a chance. He went to winter ball, found out Gomes when he found out. He was in winter ball when the trade was made. So he's trying to get some at bats that he only hit 169 2 years ago, and so he got some at bats. He came back, and he knew, going into camp that he was going to be the guy, and I think that helped, and the work he put in really helped, but. Dave, I think the offense was the big thing. 24 home runs, 63 RBIs, and he did it all on one foot, basically. He hurt his ankle. He had bone chips in his ankle from April on, and just did a great job.
And the thing is, we were talking just before the break, before we came back, people don't realize if you're a catcher playing twice a week, it's awfully hard to hit. I mean, you can't pick up the ball as well. You try to do too much, which I think was part of his problem. He was not getting good pitches to hit because he's trying to prove he can hit so he gets more playing time.
Yeah, and I think if you're the backup catcher, your main job is to catch. Mm-hmm. And I think you can give away your bats, but it got to a point where Gomes had a pretty good year 2 years ago, and they're in the race, they're winning the division. So Francona just stayed with him basically, and I remember Tito saying Perez came up to him and talked to him about getting more playing time, and he goes, Roberto, if you were me, who would you play, Gomer or you? And Perez was honest. He goes, I'd play Gomes. So that's what happened. And you're right. If you can't get a hit from the bench,
no.
You just can't.
And the one thing about it was he always had a little bit of power and always seemed to hit. I mean, if you remember the World Series, and he always seemed to hit big home runs when given the opportunity.
Right, and he's got power. And what really helped him this year, I think, was he kind of stayed to this middle of the field to right field. I think that's where his power was. He didn't try to pull everything. And he hit a lot of his home runs to right field, to center field, and he has that kind of swing that really helped him. And I think and then it just kind of snowballed from there. They could have hit him clean up a lot of times in that lineup.
Yeah. What do you think helped him? Are there any things that you found out that really have helped him kind of take off and have the kind of year that he did?
I think I think going to winter ball, down in the Dominican, he got about 60 at bats. I think that helped him, and I think he's a confident guy. You talk to him, he knows he always believed that he could hit. He believed he could hit if he got a chance, and he got the chance, and I think that was the big thing. I know. He knew the team was depending on him. He knew he was getting a chance. I think that's why he stayed in the lineup when he was hurt. And I just think, he finally got the chance to play every day, and that was, the main contribution. And then I think his defense just kind of was what it always has been, but we saw it, for 118 games instead of 40 or 60,
How much does a guy like Sandy Alomar help him? Because that's a guy who's, he knows what. Sandy Alomar is a really good catcher,
Yeah.
and to have him as part of that organization, I think that has kind of helped them develop their catchers as they've gone along.
Yeah, Sandy's a great catching coach, 6-time All-Star, Gold Glove winner, Rookie of the Year. In fact, he's the last catcher to win a Gold Glove besides Roberto this year was Sandy in 1990. So, he works really good. He works well with every catcher in the organization, and I think he's really helped Roberto with his setup. His setup behind the plate. He told me, Sandy was telling me that his setup allows him to do the three things you have to do: frame pitches, block balls, and throw runners out. And he says he does that more efficiently than anybody in the big leagues.
And I would agree with that. If you think about it, and that center field camera can show you a whole lot. He steals a lot of pitches on the corners. That's why pitchers love him because of that. And the numbers that we showed as far as FanGraphs with the percentage of throwing guys out and not a pass ball in 1,000 innings. I mean that is a thankless thing because it's not like he's scooping the ball up. He's blocking it and he's taking it off his chest protector, and if you think that doesn't hurt, let somebody punch you with a chest protector on.
And if you remember Sandy, when he caught, he was great at kind of tilting his body and blocking it in the dirt and having the ball fall in front of him where he could control it and still pick it up and throw somebody out. And I think Roberto has, learned that. They're both different body types. Roberto's shorter, Sandy was 6'5", but they both kind of know how to move side to side like that.
What and things worked out pretty well for Yan Gomes. He ended up winning a World Series. Now he is a free agent. They didn't pick up the option, but think about how fortunate the Indians were to have those two guys as their main catchers for a number of years.
Yeah, I mean, Gomes, they got him from Toronto when he was kind of a utility guy. They were the guys that moved him behind the plate full time, and Cash, the Tampa Bay's manager, is the guy that recommended that he catch, and he turned into a fine catcher. He did a great job in the World Series for the Nationals when Suzuki got hurt, and he can throw. He's got some power. We've seen that power, for 4 or 5 years. That was a good tandem of catchers, definitely.
Yeah, and the thing is, he'll cash in, being Gomes, because he's a free agent now. So
and you need catchers.
He'll get money.
You need catchers that can call a good game, that pitching staff trusts, and can swing the bat a little bit.
And again, if you're the Indians, catchers pretty well handled with Roberto Perez for the next couple of years.
Yeah, and you've got Eric Haas behind him, who hit 30 home runs, 28, 29 home runs at AAA. You've got Palwicki, who did a nice job as Roberto's backup. He's going to come back next year, and so I think they're pretty well set in catching.
Well, there are a couple areas they're not so well set at, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we're going to preview some of the GM meetings, which are kind of the forerunners to the winter meetings, where a bunch of business tends to get done. Want to tell you about Northeast Factory Direct. Northeast Factory Direct, no gimmicks, no crazy deceiving blowout sales or any of that typical retail nonsense, just 3 huge bare-bones warehouses filled with some of the same stuff you find at a number of the big box stores. One big difference. At Northeast Factory Direct, the items are priced about half of what they are at regular retail. If you want nice big-ticket items to improve your home, you want to pay half of what most people pay, go to Northeast Factory Direct, West 140th in Cleveland, the old B&B Appliance building on Lakeland Boulevard in Euclid, Freeway Drive in Macedonia. You can also check out everything on NortheastFactoryDirect.com. I want to also tell you about Northfield Park. Live racing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday. Monday through Wednesday, post time 6 o'clock. Saturday and Sunday, post time 6:40. Open early every day for simulcast action. weekly Sunday contests. Top prize $500 each week. Lady Luck's Clubhouse open every Saturday with a buffet for $15.95. Call 330-467-4101 for reservations. Special pricing on premier nights, free admission, and free parking every night on Northfield Park. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. When we return, we'll take a look at some of the things that might happen at those GM meetings, some free agents that the Indians might be looking at. Paul Hoynes, the beat reporter for the Indians for cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer is here. Dave Bacon sitting in for Les-Levine here on More Sports and Les-Levine. We'll be right back after this timeout.
No other company or product can match the features, benefits, and warranty of an authentic Nature Stone floor.
There was moisture in the basement. It ruined the carpeting. The smell was terrible. We didn't feel safe in our own basement, and that's when we called Nature Stone.
And with Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty, you will never have to replace your basement flooring again. Get Nature Stone installed by the end of October and save up to half off. Schedule your free cost estimate easily online today at naturestone.com. It's not just a floor. Wow, it's Nature Stone.
Oh, gosh. Playing Ohio Lottery Pick 3, I see. What are you going to do? A box bed, a split pairs, or a wheel? Well, old Picky Ricky here is a straight shooter.
Okay.
It razzes my berries when newbies think betting's hard. Straight bets are easy peasy. Just match 3 numbers in order and win the old-fashioned way. This, on the other hand, is not so simple. Oh, God. Oh, jeez Louise. Play the Ohio Lottery Pick 3 today.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to More Sports and Les-Levine. Dave Bacon sitting in for Les-Levine. You see the number if you want to get involved. You can also email us. Joined by Indians beat reporter Paul Hoynes. Hoynesy, you can read them in cleveland.com and the pages of the Plain Dealer as well. And Hoynes, we got Ray in Euclid who's kind of pushing hard to be a producer here on the show. What do you think about next year's second or third baseman? Moustakas, Cabrera, other thoughts? Ray, you're thinking like us because we were getting ready to talk. As we mentioned earlier, the GM meeting's coming up next week. That's kind of the prelim. You lay some of the foundation for the winter meetings where you see some of the movement and all that good stuff. So let's take a look at some free agent second basemen, and none of those guys jump off the top to me. Shoop's kind of interesting.
I like Shoop. I like he's got some power. I'm not sure what kind of defensive player he is, but Shoop's got some power. He showed it this past season with the Twins. Love his dribble. I'd like to see, a very versatile guy.
Yep.
Not sure if he's not a shortstop anymore, so he could probably play third or second. Dozier is a guy I like. I like Dozier. I know he's kind of bounced around a little bit the last couple of years.
Wasn't he was on the Nationals and didn't play well enough. They went out and got a Struble because he was struggling, right?
And he's with the Dodgers. I remember him from the Twins.
Oh yeah,
I think the last year with the Twins he had like 40 home runs. Castro is an interesting guy. Holt is kind of that utility guy with Boston who always killed the Indians. He played very well against the Tribe.
And we'll preface this by saying that Jose Ramirez has told the Indians he'll play third or he'll play second. Yeah. He would like to not bounce back and forth.
Right.
Reasonable request.
I'd like to keep him at third, really. I don't know. 2 years ago when he moved over to second for Donaldson to make room for Donaldson at the end of the season. I don't think he played real well. The Indians, a lot of people still feel second base is his best spot. Maybe it would be if he had a full spring training to get ready. I think he looks like he's got a third baseman's body as compared to a second baseman's body.
At least now he's kind of bulked up a little bit. And people think, oh, you're in the infield. The ball comes off the bat at completely different angles. And it even as a professional, it's got to take them a little bit of time to react, as it's easier, I would think, to go from third to second because the ball's kind of coming up the middle of the field. It's a very different thing going from second to third. It gets on you quicker. You just, especially turf, all those things factor in, and he's done it pretty well. That's not an easy thing to do.
And the thing I think is going to second base, he's got to turn to double play. And he's, he's done that. He's been a shortstop. He's played all over. He's a versatile guy, but I think you need your timing there. You can't just do that.
And since we did look at the second baseman, let's take a look at the third baseman. And the top two guys on here, they're going to get way more money than the Indians are going to pay in Rendon and Donaldson. Anthony Rendon, he's a heck of a player.
I really hadn't seen him every day until watching the World Series. God, he did everything.
Yeah.
He could have been the MVP, I thought.
Yeah. He's really good. I had followed them. I just liked the Nationals. And you can't compare them because they got so much young talent. What about Moustakas? That's a guy that a lot of people hear about. What do you?
I like Moustakas. He always played well against the Tribe when he was with Kansas City. I think they played him a little bit at second base. He could play some third base. He turned down an $11 million mutual option with the Brewers to become a free agent. So that tells me he's looking for a lot of money, or maybe more money than the Indians can afford. So I think he'd fit well in the Tribe's lineup, but I just don't know if it's going to match up price-wise. Pablo, the Kung Fu Panda.
I
think
know.
He's probably on the way out.
But Brad Miller, we saw Brad Miller.
Brad Miller wasn't happy here, and then he comes back and hits a couple home runs with the Phillies at the end of the season against them.
I think the Brad Miller ship with Tito sailed right out there the last time he was in the Indians clubhouse. When you look at that, what do you think the economics will be? Because it seems more and more like there's the guys that are getting $300 million and the guys that aren't getting quite as much as they think they should.
Yeah, it's an interesting. It really, the last 2 years, the free agents have a lot of free agent veterans. Guys like Donaldson and Bryce Harper and Manny Machado. Those guys are always going to get paid. Maybe Donaldson isn't in that category, but those other two, Harper, Donald, and
like a Lindor.
Yeah, those guys are going to get paid as long as they're healthy and they keep producing like they have. But guys like Milky Cabrera and a lot of free agents that pretty good players that have got caught in that free agent freeze the last 2 years. That's tough, and there's they get lowballed, or they have to come to camp on minor league deals, and those are players that can help. You saw the Nationals were the oldest team in the big leagues, and they were filled with players like that, Cabrera and those guys. So those guys can help a team win, and I think that's probably some of the the source of the unrest with the Players Association right now.
But here's the question, though: if you're, something has to give, because if you're signing guys to $300 million contracts, it just makes sense that there's going to be less to give the guys that are the quote-unquote middle class of baseball.
And that's why only a few teams can do that. Only a few teams can sign Harper or Machado. San Diego kind of came out of nowhere. Well, I shouldn't say nowhere, because they signed Hosmer to a big contract a year before. But and are you going to go right up next to the luxury tax? Even the Yankees don't want to, spend more than $208 million and start being taxed. So that's a tough call on teams, and depending on their what their market size.
Does it end up where it becomes the work stoppage because the players' union is is the players' union going to be willing to, fight for the middle class because you've got all the guys making money at the top end of it?
Yeah, it's going to be.
That's a question.
That's a great question, and the current contract runs out in 2021, and we're going to find out.
Well, and you know what? Don't be too surprised if that doesn't figure into what you do with somebody like Francisco-Lindor. That's coming up into that window,
and that's when that's his free agent year.
Right. So that has to figure in to what the Indians plan on doing, because the landscape may be completely different.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're not going to pay a guy if there's no games being played.
Correct.
If the players are on strike. So
and the flip side of it is, it may you may have to rebuild the whole structure of it. So that is something that has to be a dilemma for Antonetti, Chernoff, and the guys that are running the Indians.
And it's not so much a dilemma for the teams. They've figured out a way to circumvent, to work within the system. Mm-hmm. When was the last time you heard an owner scream about baseball not having a salary cap? I mean, they've found a way to make it work. The people that are upset about it are the players. They want the dramatic changes now. The pendulum has swung completely to the opposite side. It's favoring the owners now, where for years, the players have had the upper hand.
And another area that we'll look at as we move on from that thought, let's take a look at the free agent outfielders. And Castellanos did really well for the Cubs, even though they didn't make the playoffs. It wasn't his fault. Ozuna's a guy that's kind of intriguing. Yeah. Gardner's a little up there.
Gardner will probably go back to the Yankees, I would think.
Garcia's interesting.
He's the Indians saw him a ton with the White Sox. Was really kind of a defensive liability. I think he's gotten a little better, but he had a great year with the Rays this year. He can hit, and it's an interesting guy. Maben is a guy they had in camp. When they were short some outfielders, they brought him into camp this spring. They traded him to the Yankees, and he played pretty well for them.
Yeah, Puig's interesting.
Puig is interesting. I love Puig.
I did too.
I thought he was fun. Yep. He was a good guy to deal with. He didn't hit any home runs, which was a surprising thing to me. He only hit 2 home runs with the Indians, but he hit like 24 with Cincinnati, and that's a bandbox.
Right. And you saw his arm though.
Great arm.
Yep.
And he's just the way he runs the bases. I mean, I don't know. I know when the Indians got him, they thought, okay, we got him for 2 months. We can do it. But if you sign a guy for 2 or 3 years, can you do it? That's the question. He was on his best behavior, and is he going to do that for the length of a multi-year deal? So we'll see. That's the question.
Well, Ben Zobrist is another guy that's very intriguing. He's very much, he can play all over.
Yeah.
He plays the game the right way, as they say. That would, if he's in their price range, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I mean, he's coming off a huge deal with the Cubs. He's Tito's kind of player. Like you said, he plays all over the place. Productive guy. Beat him in Game 7, in the World Series. Had the big hit in extra innings. I don't know. He had some, off-the-field problems this year with the Cubs. I don't know if that has affected him or where he's at with that. I guess that would be something you'd have to look into.
He did come back and play towards the end of the year, so that would lead you to believe, he might be looking too. But all those things factor in. The thing that gets overlooked a little bit is, this front office has done a great job, but boy, they missed on the outfielders that they tried to bring in to solve the thing at the beginning of the year.
And I think Hanley Ramirez, who was Gonzalez.
Yep.
There was somebody else too.
Normally the veterans do pretty well, and it just didn't.
No, those guys, they kind of came in late. They didn't play well. The center fielder with
Martin.
Martin, and he almost died 2 years ago.
Literally, I mean, we're not making that up.
And and I think the worst thing that happened to him this past season was in the first 2 weeks he hit about 7 home runs, and his swing got all screwed up, and he was kind of an erratic player to begin with. But I think obviously I think they brought in those guys to bridge the gap.
Yep.
They knew they'd cut payroll, they'd gotten rid of Encarnacion, Gomes. They really kind of ravaged the middle of their lineup. So they brought those guys in to help them offensively, and it turned out that those guys were pretty much done. But they got better when they brought up, when they started playing Naquin and Allen and Mercado, yeah.
Mercado, that's such an Indians kind of deal. They was a minor deal the year before. He was a guy that was a shortstop, and they kind of saw, when he went to the outfield, he started to hit in the minors, and he looks like he might be able to be their center fielder leadoff hitter, which solves one of them. Now they got to get some power.
Yeah, I mean, he really had a good year. I mean, he made some mistakes, but a rookie's going to make mistakes like that. But he can go get it in center field, and he really solidified that number 2 spot behind Lindor. And I think he looks like a leadoff hitter too because he can run. He's got some speed.
Well, we are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. You see the number, and I want to tell you about Tri-C. Explore your interest and find a program that puts you on a path to a bright future. Tri-C offers more than 1,000 courses and over 140 career and technical programs. Go to tri-c.edu, tri-c.edu to find out more. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Paul, we're gonna give you a segment off. We're going to welcome in Matt Goul from cleveland.com to talk a little bit about the high school football playoffs. But on the other side of that, Hoynes will be here for one of his classic Hoynesy rants. More Sports and Les-Levine will continue. Dave Bacon sitting in for Les. Paul Hoynes will be back, but on the other side of break, Matt Goul joins us. Stay with us on More Sports and Les-Levine.
As a kid growing up, my dream was to go to college, play baseball, and get a degree. Coming out of high school, I had 2 choices. I was accepted into a 4-year university, but I decided to come to Tri-C after receiving a scholarship. I got my associate's degree at Tri-C. They transferred all my credits straight into Baldwin-Wallace, so I started at Baldwin-Wallace University as a junior. My name is Tyler Leonard, and I earned my first degree at Tri-C.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family warm this winter,
here, let me show you how this works.
It takes Bryant.
Bryant. Whatever it takes.
Welcome back to More Sports and Les-Levine. We'll be bringing Paul Hoynes back in just a minute, but first we want to talk a little bit about high school football playoffs get underway across Ohio tomorrow night. With that, we're going to welcome in Cleveland.com's high school reporter, Matt Goul. Matt's seen more games than I have, which is quite a few. So, Matt, we appreciate the time. Let's begin Division I, Region I. Top 2 teams, Menor and St. Ed's, also the top 2 teams in the state. Certainly looks like those two are on a collision course to meet each other. They started the year off against each other with Menor winning, but they look really good and just a little bit better than the other teams that qualified in Division I, Region I.
Some things just don't change. I remember we were at Euclid last year for that regional championship, and I think I told you that night, whoever wins this game is winning the state title. And, they are the 2 odds-on favorites right now. I mean, you look at St. Ed's and Menor. Menor has just been so fundamentally sound with everything they've done this year. They had that 6-game stretch until week 10 where they only gave up 14 points. I mean, 21 total, but only 14 were from that defense. They graduate Noah Potter and a lot of guys, but man, their new guys up front have been performing exceptionally well. Their linebackers, Jackson Paglio is back. Kyle Bischoff, those guys. The secondary with Nizier Forqueen and Marco Toth. They do not have a weak link, and it's just so hard to beat a team that does not have a weak link.
Well, the other thing is Coach Trevisano did announce back in January this was going to be his final year, and I've talked to those players a couple of times, and it's a focus. It is a focal point for them. They are motivated by that, trying to get that first state title for Coach Trevisano.
Also, I think there was a lesson in that loss they had to Solon last year that really stuck with them. Talking to Luke Flory about it multiple times this season, they have a chip on their shoulder, and usually at a big school like that's hard to get. But I think you lose a couple of games that they thought they should have won. That's all the motivation they need.
When you look at that matchup, what intrigues you? St. Ed's is a little different in that week 1 loss by a point to Menor, where they played pretty well. Didn't have Mackenzie Wainwright, didn't have Terry Foster playing wide receiver. That's a basketball guy who's turned into a pretty good football wide receiver, and Wainwright's a baseball guy who's always been a pretty good wide receiver.
Yeah, in August, they thought Mackenzie Wainwright they thought Montori would be a defensive back. And week 1, they were still getting him going. They weren't completely comfortable with him yet playing out there. I don't know if maybe he wasn't as comfortable either, but just a week later or 2 weeks later, he caught on like wildfire. And I'll tell you what, if they meet up, that's going to be quite the challenge for that secondary, because Wainwright, he came back and they force-fed him the ball so much. He tied a school record with 3 touchdown receptions in his first game back. So, but look, the big thing for these teams is they can't look ahead. Menor, I think, especially knowing their lessons from last year, they won't. But man, they have a humdinger of a first-round game with Cleveland Heights. Their competition, you could say, isn't up to par with the GCC. But I'll tell you what, they've got a lot of pieces that I like how they match up, whether it's the secondary, defensive front. I'm intrigued to see what Menor does with Bay Harvey, because he can beat you running the ball or throwing the ball. And what are they going to do against him? That's going to be quite interesting to watch.
We'll move on a little bit. Let's talk a little bit Division II, Region 5, and that is brutal in that region. You have the 2 teams that played in the Division II state title game, Massillon and Hoban in Region 5, and they're separated by a 10-0 Mayfield Wildcats team that hasn't lost this year. So Division 5 and Region 2 is pretty well loaded.
Yeah, when the OHSAA announced its realignment for this year, it was much more geographical than ever before. All the Northeast Ohio teams are now in 2 different regions, but going into last year, we had 3 regions with teams, and now it's just the 2. And everybody started scratching their head what was in Region 5. They're thinking, oh my gosh, how are we going to get through this? And Hoban's interesting because, Diamante Trainum got hurt against Lake Catholic, and they've held him out. Tim Tyrell said it was a precautionary thing with them, so I expect this team to be a little more full strength, although we have heard reports, the Akron Beacon-Journal reported this week 10, that Caden Clark got hurt, and he is likely out for the postseason. So how will that factor in? Because I'll tell you what, they've had a line that they've worked really well, but one of their big things at Hoban has been using him in motion as a blocking back. And that's going to be quite interesting. See how that matches up. If that factors in, you can't help, you don't replace an Alabama recruit at tight end. So it's still going to be interesting. I think it makes, Hoban, I would have said, was a lockdown favorite still at full strength. It's going to be quite interesting if they meet up again. But I'll tell you what, Mayfield's got something to say about it.
Yeah, Massillon's pretty tough. I've seen them. They beat Barberton pretty well a couple weeks ago that I saw as well. So Massillon, Hoban, that's interesting. Other side of that, in Region 6, you got Avon, unbeaten again, banged up. They have gone through a number of skill position guys. And a team kind of lurking in the middle of that bracket is Benedictine. What do you think about the Bengals in that one?
Love the Bengals. I mean, their linebacking core is great. They're very athletic. They've really bought into that first year with Coach Jarrett Good. Jalen Edwards has been probably one of the top players in the area this year. He's a bruising back. He's shifty. He can run you over, and he just gobbles up the yardage. And, they've got a strong offensive line. Ronnie Schultz, who came in at quarterback this year for Nick Demchuk, who graduated, he's been spectacular. They've probably got, in this region, it could come down to weather for something like that because they've got a ton of receivers. They've got Charles Rosser, who's a MAC recruit. They've got Chris Gales, a junior receiver who is spectacular. Marvin Conkle, who was injured for most of the season, is back. They've got a slot receiver who's pretty darn good. If it's not a rainy, wet type of Friday night game where they can really stretch you out with the passing game, that's going to be another dimension to worry about. And you look at Avon, you mentioned they've been banged up. They lost Nick Perusic for the season. But Joey Lance, that guy has stepped in, a senior receiver. They've used him at running back. He's had a ton of yards with Devon Hunter, a junior, and he's also one of their best secondary guys. There's a lot to like about Avon, but I'll throw this into it as well. Watch out for Avon Lake. They've got the fastest defense in Division II, I would say. I will go out on a limb and say, outside of Hoban, they have the fastest defense in the state in Division II. Their defensive line with Nick Marsh and Ryan McCrum, they are really good up front, really quick. They had I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but they had an insane number of shutouts and just games in which they haven't given up. I don't think they've given up more than a touchdown since week 2.
Let's move on. We'll go talk Division III, Region 9. This one's loaded. You've got the defending state champs in Kenston as the 8th seed. New Philly, who was number 1 in the state for a good chunk of the season, is the 1 seed. They lost their quarterback. And then lingering in the middle there, you got the Aurora Greenmen back in the playoffs, unbeaten, and they're allowing something ridiculous like 4.8 points a game. So that region is stacked.
Yeah, congratulations, Quakers. You earned the number 1 seed. Your quarterback goes down. Now you have to play defending state champs. And that's a common theme a little bit in all of Division III. The Kettering Archbishop Altar, who lost to Kenston last year's state title game, they are an 8th seed in their region this year. And then you look at Glenville, which is an 8th seed in Division III in Region 10. There could be some pretty crazy upsets on Friday night. But you look at Division III, Region 9, and oh my gosh, this is such a fun region. You got a lot of hard-nosed defenses, teams that like to punch you in the mouth, whether it's Aurora, who you mentioned, Chardon, Steubenville. I mean, Steubenville has, their resume it speaks for itself what they've done, and they're in Division III for the first year. Who knows who will come out of this division? I made the comment earlier about Region 1 winning the state title. You look at Region 9, Division III, and man, whoever comes out of that has got to be the odds-on favorite.
Matt Goul, as always, we appreciate the time and the insight. Does a great job. Follow him, cleveland.com, also the pages of the Plain Dealer. He will be busy. I know you're doing basketball this time, but Friday and Saturday I know you'll be running around to football games, so I'm sure we will see you out there. Appreciate the time. Keep up the great work. Matt Goul, the high school reporter for cleveland.com. We're going to step aside and take a quick time out, but Hoynes was here. That means we have a rant on the other side of this break. Also want to tell you about Northfield Park, live and simulcast harness racing. Monday, Wednesday, post times 6:40, Saturday and Sunday post time 6:40, Monday and Wednesday 6 o'clock. Open early for simulcast action each and every day. Weekly Sunday contest featuring the Belmont. Top prize is $500 each week. Lady Luck's Clubhouse is open every Saturday for a buffet, only $15.95. Call 330-467-4101 for reservations. Special pricing on premier nights. Free admission and parking every day at Northfield Park. Again, we're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of break, you want to be with us. Hoynes' Rant, straight ahead. More sports and Les-Levine. We'll be right back.
No other company or product can match the features, benefits, and warranty of an authentic Nature Stone floor.
I had an epoxy-based sand paint on my floor that deteriorated, and that's why I called Nature Stone.
Why paint? It's expensive, it's ugly, and it doesn't last. Nature Stone is always affordable. It's beautiful, and with Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty, you will never have to replace your garage floor again. Get Nature Stone installed by the end of October and save up to half off. It's not just a floor, wow, it's Nature Stone.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Presque Isle Downton Casino now has sports betting. Use one of the 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet. Then, watch your favorite games on our new HD televisions or visit our new sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downton Casino.
This day in sports history, November 7th, 1943, the Lions and Giants finish with a scoreless tie, the last in the NFL. I did not know that, back in 1943. We told you earlier we have a Facebook question of the day each and every day. Today's, what should be the Indians' top priority this offseason? Not a surprise, Tim with keep Frankie-Lindor. Rick May, try to keep Lindor and obtain a power-hitting outfielder and starting infielder. Mark with a rough one, ownership change. Ted Moon, Indians' priority is threefold. Give Tito an extension, try re-signing Frankie-Lindor. He says, I know. And a veteran starting pitcher. No chance for Cole. I'd look hard at Wheeler, Keuchel. Braves got a steal last season, or Madison Bumgarner. I think all three of those are probably a little on the high end.
Yeah, that's interesting because all they have is pitching. You know,
Yeah.
I think their primary concern outside of trying to sign Lindor, which I don't think is going to happen, I think they've got to find an infielder, obviously, to either play second base or third base. You know.
And you need a corner outfielder.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they could get one outfielder at least that would be an everyday guy.
Yep.
You know, they had Michael Brantley for 5 years. They had Puig for the second half of last season. You know, they need a guy like that. So you're not platooning at all. You know, you're not running 6 and 7 guys out there at 3 different positions.
Yeah, I would agree. We're going to step aside, take one more time out, and then Hoynes' rant. Called a tease in the TV or digital business. I want to tell you about Sokolowski's University Inn. You've heard Les rave about it. James Beard award-winning, Cleveland's oldest family-owned restaurant. Sokolowski's University Inn, located in Tremont, established back in 1923. Everybody goes there, tells me they have great food. I need to go there. I need to find out for myself.
It's good. I've been there.
We're going to step aside, take one more time out. When we return, what you've been waiting for, Hoynes' rant. Straight ahead, more sports and less Levine. We'll be right back here on cleveland.com.
No other company or product can match the features, benefits, and warranty of an authentic Nature Stone floor.
There was moisture in the basement. It ruined the carpeting. The smell was terrible. We didn't feel safe in our own basement, and that's when we called Nature Stone.
And with Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty, you will never have to replace your basement flooring again. Get Nature Stone installed by the end of October and save up to half off. Schedule your free cost estimate easily online today at naturestone.com. It's not just a floor, wow, it's Nature Stone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I want to remind you, Facebook.com/more-sports-and-les-levine. New content posted each and every day, including our Facebook question of the day. Also, the voicemail of Truth and Reason, 216-200-6650. You can call anytime, leave a message, and we will use them in a future show. Keep them kind of brief and poignant and hard-hitting, and you got a good chance at getting on the air. Well, Silver Sluggers have been awarded, and the Indians do have a player who won a Silver Slugger award. Carlos-Santana wins it at first base. He's the only Indian that won it, and he deserved it.
Yeah, definitely. He was the cornerstone of that offense, especially in the first half. I think set career high. Well, I don't know if he set. I'm pretty sure close to career highs in homers and RBIs. Dave, he was a veteran guy who changed his approach. You don't see that happen very much. And he went from a dead pull hitter to a guy that used the whole field, and it really benefited him.
Well, and the other thing that doesn't show you is he didn't have a lot of protection, especially early in the year when he was hitting those 34 home runs and 93 runs batted in. He wasn't getting a lot of good pitches to hit. That kind of speaks to how good he was.
In those best 2 days, I think he hit the home run against the Twins in extra innings, a grand slam when they took 3 out of 4 and then the next day he hit a walk-off against Boston to put him in first place on September 12th by a half game for 1 day, and that was it. That was his best 2-game stretch.
Well, we've reached that time of the show where I am going to sit it up, put it on a tee, and then sit back and enjoy Paul Hoynes. Take it away, sir.
Dave, the thing that amazes me about professional sports is the vibe changes in a moment. And, it can go from being a business to a game and back again in a heartbeat. And nothing points this out more clearly than the last game of the World Series. The last game of the World Series, on the last out, about 100-plus players automatically become free agents. And, and a lot of those guys, it turns out, that are on the World Series teams. Take Garrett Cole, for example. The Houston Astros lose Game 7. Afterward, an Astros PR guy came up and asked him if he would talk to a group of reporters. And Garrett Cole reportedly said, well, I no longer work for the Astros because I'm a free agent. But he agreed finally, and when he went to talk to the reporters, he's wearing a Scott Boras agency hat, not the Houston Astros baseball cap. And a couple days after that, the Nationals are getting ready to, hold their World Series parade in the nation's capital, the first such parade since 1924 in Washington, D.C. And Steven Strasburg picks that day the MVP of the series to opt out of his contract and become a free agent. So, but this has been going on for a long time. Free agency has been here. It kind of, if you're a fan, it kind of knocks the wind out of you for a minute. But I'm sure there's a lot of Indians fans that would want to be winless, if they were in that position. But still, there's something else that's been going on a long time in baseball, a long time, and it's labor peace. The current contract between owners and players ends in 2020, and when that contract ends, we'll have almost 30 years of labor peace in baseball. And if you know your history, that's unbelievable. From what happened in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, the last strike was in 1994. So but storm clouds are kind of gathering. The owners. The owners have kind of figured out how to work the system now. The pendulum has swung toward them, and this hasn't made the players happy. The last couple of years, a lot of veteran free agent guys that got lowballed and squeezed out, they've had to come to spring training on minor league deals and one-year deals, and it's made them unhappy, and it's also made Tony Clark, the union boss, unhappy. He's simmering over this. He has all but accused the owners of collusion, something that the owners did in the 1980s, and it cost them millions upon millions of dollars because they were found guilty of it. So, what I'm saying right now is you've got 2 years left. we better enjoy these 2 years apiece, because I don't think, this is the worst I've felt about the possibility of a strike. But the question is, will these guys strike? These guys have gone 3 decades. These players have gone 3 decades without strikes. They haven't, had to go to the blood, sweat, and tears that the other guys, the former players did to give them the contract and the situations that they have now. But Dave, all is not doom and gloom. All is not doom and gloom. There is a professional gambling site, online, a profession that is currently taking bets on what kind of facial hair Browns quarterback,
Baker Mayfield.
Browns quarterback Baker Mayfield will be wearing when he comes when he takes a first snap against the Buffalo Bills on Sunday. Will he be clean shaven? Will he have a mustache? Will he have a beard? Will he have a Fu Manchu? Baker Mayfield, who's tied for the NFL lead in interceptions. The world awaits.
What are you going with? Clean shaven, beard?
I'm going with the Fu Manchu.
He didn't deserve the handlebar mustache. He said
Raleigh fingers. He couldn't do Raleigh fingers.
At least he admitted he didn't deserve it. And with that, we will leave you. Have a great night. We'll be back tomorrow with More Sports and Les-Levine Weekend Winners Edition. Les will be back in the chair Monday at 6 o'clock. Have a great weekend, everybody. Great job, Paul Hoynes. Enjoyed it.
All right.